I got my nice, 19-inch Philco here. This is fine. But we're living in a really different world, and I think people are willing to spend $1,000, $2,000 or more on a television set because stuff looks so great on it. It's interesting that we're talking about two direct view technologies, LCD and plasma, where you're actually looking at the screen instead of a projection from the rear or projection from the front. Those really have become dominant for a couple of reasons. First of all, they beat the CRT because they're thin. And nobody comes into a store. I once asked a Future Shop employee, who shall remain nameless, so who's buying these TVs? He says, well, what happens is the couple comes in, because it's expensive, they both have to decide. The husband says, he's kind of hesitant, he's looking at the big screen TVs, but the wife will come over and say, look how thin this is, it's going to integrate easily, and she'll give him permission. Whereas you look at a bigger TV and it's a much harder sell, frankly. We all want the big screen TVs. Now here's the really good news, the prices have just tumbled. They've really tumbled. I was ready to completely devastate you with a price comparison until I actually did the price comparison, and when you talk about price per square inch, they're very comparable. We're talking at the lowest end in plasma and LCD about $1.50 a square inch, up to maybe $4 or $5 for the higher end. This is a fifth what they cost even a few years ago. So people are really looking now at these HD TVs, and I'll be completely candid, you can't go wrong. But I'll tell you that there is a difference, and we'll talk about it. But I have in my living room, I have an LCD, I have a Sharp Aquos, which I'm very happy with, and in the home theater, aka the bedroom, I've been married 18 years. The home theater is a 50-inch plasma, which I'm really in love with. It's a Pioneer. It's a generation old now, of course. That's the only negative about it. I bought it a year ago, the 5070, and I'm very happy with both TVs. What you have to understand is they work differently. So the LCD is essentially it's a liquid crystal. These are a panel of liquid crystal cells, one per pixel, actually 3 per pixel, and a light from behind, usually fluorescent, although now more and more LED from behind. The light then is allowed through the liquid crystal in a shuttering effect. So electricity is sent to the liquid crystal. It will open up or close to the degree it needs to, depending on the amount of electricity, and allow the light through. So in effect, you've got a panel that's letting light through. A plasma is actually generating its own light. Each plasma cell, and one cell does duty for red, green, and blue, generates light depending on how much electricity is going to it. It's got a charged gas, a plasma inside, and it's glowing as the electricity goes to it. So that really tells you a lot about the differences between these two displays. The liquid crystal display, because its darkening effect is only because it's shuttered down, isn't as good at black, at dark. It doesn't in fact ever really get perfect black. And I have to say that the technology's improved so much, they're getting very close to that. Whereas a plasma, it's off. It is black. So plasmas tend to show much, much better contrast ratio. It's a darker screen. But there is a problem. In order to do this, we have to have glass in front, which is very reflective, and it's not as bright a screen as LCD. So plasma is good in a darkened room. If you want a real home theater experience and you want a bigger screen, LCD doesn't go, unless you want to spend a lot of money, it doesn't go to 60 or more inches. Plasma does. So if you want a 50 or 60, chances are you're going to be getting a plasma, but you have to use it in a darkened room. But you get that's where you really get the home theater experience. You want the best possible picture. Plasma is the way to go. LCD looks good. I'm not saying it doesn't. But if you want the best home theater experience, plasma is absolutely the way to go.
Any rebuttal?
Well, I mean, I think we're really saying...
I think you're wrong!
I think we're really saying that it depends what you want to do with your TV and what space you want to put your TV in. So if you have a smaller space with lots of light, then you might want to go for an LCD. If you have a bigger space and it's darker, a plasma is better. And so it depends on your price point, the size of TV, the room that you're putting it in, and what you want to do with it. And so I think if you look at that, really there's different answers for different people. So as much as we want to fight about this right now...
That's the ultimate Canadian response.
I know. As much as we want to fight about this right now, it really just depends.
You used to see 27-inch plasmas. You don't see them anymore, really. And you don't see really 50-inch. You can get a 50-inch LCD, but they're very pricey. So it does divide itself in the size of the screen. If you're going to watch it in a living room where you can't darken it, I wouldn't get a plasma because it'd be hard to see.
The only other thing about LCDs I think that makes them maybe a little bit better is that I've read that they actually last longer and they consume less energy, which is another point, if you're paying attention to that might be an important factor in your decision. But you know, let's face it, people don't necessarily buy TVs and want them for 20 years, but if you're looking at those different factors, that's one to take into consideration.
You know, I think both LCD and plasma are going to last 10 to 15 years. Everybody agrees on that. Unlike a projection, you don't have to buy a new light in the back. LCD, potentially that fluorescent will die, but you're not going to replace that. You're going to buy a whole new TV. Plasma's problem is more leakage. Now, you address this burn-in issue, and I want to address this because for years I did not recommend plasmas. I actually actively said don't buy a plasma. And that's because I have used older plasmas that got very dim. The colors got washed out as the plasma leaked out. And by